Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Awakening Her podcast. Oh my goodness. Right as I hit record, I say hello, hello. I look at my computer, 11:11. I love that. I love when that happens. Anyway, welcome back to the show. I am so excited to be back with you today. If you are new here, hello, hi. My name is Talia Joy. I don't really know how to describe myself. I'm a channel, I'm a guide. I help you to awaken and manifest and really step into that life that you know you're meant for. And in that journey, there is manifestation and new habits and lots of practical tools. But we also talk about the healing, right? We talk about the healing, the spiritual flu, the ascending pains, if you want to call it that, because this life is not always easy. But I'm here to help you through, and I'm so excited that you're here in this episode today. It's a great episode to tune into. And before we do get into it, I want to check in. How you doing? How's the mind? How's the body? How you feeling? Maybe let's go into a nice stretch. Whatever stretch your body needs right now. Just take a deep breath in and exhale. We're just checking in. How's the nervous system? Drop the shoulders. Okay, I hope you are doing well. I hope you're prioritizing rest. I'm really trying to do that. I genuinely feel like with 3 kids and busy life, like I almost just get consistently more and more tired. And then I have this like, I need a gigantic sleep in, like I need some rest. And so that's what I'm feeling like right now. And I've been really trying, like get to bed like 9:30, but we also just got a kitten. Yay. We just got a kitten, like literally the day of recording this. It was 2 days ago. So I'm all of a sudden up in the night, aware in the night. I've got 3 kids. We've got a dog. I don't know. I think I didn't know going into this phase of life that I would have to give up so much sleep. So I'm really trying to also embrace downtime in the day, just taking moments of pause. If all of a sudden like the clouds part and everything aligns and I have like a quiet moment, I'm trying to go just sit down. Put up your feet for a second, or do a quick meditation, or have a shower, just trying to get pockets of stillness and calm into my day because sometimes it's hard to get enough sleep. Okay, moving on. So, in this episode today, we are talking about highest self versus trauma response, and particularly habits, actions, the things we do. Is it coming from higher self or is it coming from a trauma response? And I want to say, I'm sure that you can relate to this or you have your own perspective on this because I know every single one of my clients, as well as I've been teaching about intuition for basically the whole time I've been doing this. Also, this month on The Path, our entire theme is intuition. So if you're not part of the community, I recommend to come and join. But every time I'm working with a client or we're in, an intuition program I'm teaching, it always comes up. Is this the ego or is this the intuition? Is this coming from a good place or is this like sneaky? And I always call that the ego in the highest self suit because sometimes, and we're going to get all into it in the episode, so I'm not going to go too far right now, but sometimes the ego will present itself like, oh, but you shouldn't go for a run today. Like you just got those new shoes. They're going to get wet. And you're like, yeah, you're right. Wait a minute, right? Sometimes it's hard to tell. So in this episode, we're really talking about the habits you do, the things you do, even your goals and desires. We're just diving deeper into the conversation of determining when is it your highest self, when it's deeply aligned, that real part of you, that magnetic part of you, that soul part of you, and when is a habit or an action actually coming from a trauma response. And these can be very sneaky. These can look good, as I said, or they seem spiritual, even like spiritual bypassing. Like that's more of a trauma response than a higher self. And when I say that, I mean when someone goes like, but it's all good, or it's okay, just be happy. Like that's spiritual or optimism bypassing, where you're not allowing yourself to feel what's going on. You're instead just going like, oh, I just need to be high vibe, right? And that's not fully in the highest self because the highest self knows that every emotion has an experience and has a purpose. And you were made a multifaceted human with a range of emotions. That's the biggest difference between you as a human and you as a soul. There's lots of difference, but the physicality, the emotions, like in spirit, they don't have all these complex, the way it occurs to me through my channel, they don't have all these complex emotions like jealousy or feeling inferior. Like there's a lot of that that's human. So when we're sad, when we're frustrated, when we are mad, when we are happy, when we're in pleasure, these are all meant to be experienced through the human. And your highest self knows that. So anytime it's like, get it together, you shouldn't feel this, you shouldn't feel that, that's never the highest self. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. I can't wait to dive into this episode because I know that you listening, you've probably at some time felt like you're still doing the work, or you've been doing the work for a long time, but still feeling stuck and kind of not knowing what your highest self is saying to do next, or what your intuition is guiding you to do. Maybe you find yourself sabotaging when you know better, right? Like that feeling of like, oh, I know better. Why am I doing this? That's generally always more of a trauma response, more of a reaction inside you coming from a place that isn't highest self. And these things are never bad. They're never wrong. It's never ever my style to shame. And I just don't believe in like, oh, that's just a limiting belief. Just get rid of it. That's not the way that it works. The power comes when we identify it, because those trauma responses feel real. When you feel an uncontrollable craving or an urge or a sabotage or a shutdown, those are very real. So going like, oh, I should just not do this, or someone saying like, that's just a trauma response, don't do it. That's actually not where we get results. I am here to share the other way, where we can be aware of the trauma response and then give that part of ourselves what we need in order to move forward versus just bypassing it, right? So if you've been feeling these things, if you feel like you're not quite connected in with your truth right now, or just looking for, that inspiration to connect you deeper, this is definitely your mirror, your medicine, as I always try to be. It's that, beautiful episode that you need on the right day. So I'm really excited. Other than that, have you checked out the retreat yet? Holy bananas. I am so excited. I won't go too far into it because I'm going to be talking about it a lot, but check the link below. Check the previous episode about the retreat if you have been calling for that healing, for that activation, for that nature immersion, and you want to hug in person, or not hug if that's like not your thing or whatever. We can like shake hands. We could like high five. I could do like the arm, the hand gun and the winky face, whatever your style is. I cannot wait to hang out in person. But anyway, let's dive into this episode. I'm so excited you're here. Let's just do it. Okay, so I just want to share something. If you've listened to more than a couple episodes, you'll understand this. I've conditioned myself now that when I do the intro, once I say like, let's get into it or let's do this, I take a sip of water, because forever I've been saying like, okay, take a sip of water, take a sip of your tea, let's do it. And so I've conditioned myself to do the same. So I didn't say it just now, but I took a sip of water. I'm like Pavlov's dog. I'm fully conditioned. So if you didn't do it, take a sip of your water now and let's dive in. Okay, we're already here. All right. So the place that I want to start today is I want to bring light to, I want to shine a flashlight of love and awareness onto the higher self. I'm sorry. I'm like weird. I'm a weirdo today. I think it's the kitten vibes. I'm just feeling kind of like that weird part of me is shining, and that's all good. So let's start with your highest self. The part of you that is connected to the higher self, the way I want to describe it, the way my team is showing me right now is, so you have your soul and you have your human. And for the sake of this conversation, we're going to call those in some ways opposites or different layers of yourself. They're really not opposites. So it kind of like cringes me to say that because it's not. Anyway, the way my team shows me is like, there's the soul, which is that is the spirit part of you, is how they want to say it. the soul is the spirit part of you, whereas the human is the physical part of you. And the human and the soul are in the same experience. The soul is in the body's in the soul. They exist together, but one is very physical and one is very spiritual, right? So the spirit, the life force energy, the aura, the essence that I believe you carry through you in each of your lifetimes, and for some bigger purpose that we, may not even be aware of. It's the God particle within you, whatever you want to say. It's that spirit part. So the higher self is kind of in the middle of those. It bridges the gap between the spirit part of you that is non-physical at all and is kind of one consciousness. It bridges the gap between that part of you and the human, which is narrowed down through the senses, through the mind, through the brain, through the physical body, the meat suit that we're here in. And so the higher self bridges the gap. So the higher self moves from love, moves from truth, moves from self-trust, from oneness, from higher inspiration. But they bridge the gap into this physical life. So you can say to yourself, how would my higher self handle this physical situation, right? Maybe it's this stress around finances or this situation at work or in a relationship. We can say, how would my highest self handle this? That's because your highest self has a degree of physicality, whereas I believe from my perspective, you couldn't really say like, how would my soul plan this road trip? I mean, I would get what you're talking about and so would your spirit team, but like, how would my soul handle being at the dentist? Like, it's almost like not, your soul is non-physical. So the highest self is what bridges the two. So you can create boundaries that honor your energy. You can, the higher self will help you to rearrange your calendar so you have more spaciousness, or to suggest, going running or starting to walk or go out in nature today. Your highest self can house your intuition and guide you like, yes, this physical decision feels good, or this person feels good, or this thing feels like a no feeling, right? So the highest self bridges the two. And in some way, they hold the path to mastering this human experience, right? How would my higher self look after themselves? How would she eat? How would she exercise? How would she invest in herself? That's going to be the physical path to your higher expression. So the trauma response self gets, in some ways, I'm just going to describe it how it would flow through me, my language and my team. The best way I can say is like, it's the conditioned brain part of you. So our physical brain in our human body is it's like a machine, right? You teach it something, there's neural pathways, it gives things meaning. We learn like that's a tree, that's a this. It's processing, it's analyzing, it's the data. It's like what is that? Scanning up and down, oh, that's a tiger. It's like our brain in some ways is very much like a computer. But our brain was the thing from the beginning that was trying to figure out this experience, because it was unknown. What is this? What is that? So as a young kid and a baby and a toddler and all that, we're learning. This is the color red and this is the sun and, these are my feet and whatever else we're learning. So the brain is learning and storing information. So when something happens in our life that is scary, that feels unsafe, really something that is too much for our brain to process, too much, too fast. We don't have the language, we don't have the emotions, we feel scared. And it can be anything, any type of trauma that you could ever imagine, from what they call the capital T traumas, like the biggest traumas, to everything under the sun that could happen to a human, such as being bullied, or a sibling coming in and your parent doesn't have as much space for you, or one scary thing where you thought you were lost and it just locked into your brain. It can be witnessing abuse. It can be witnessing parents fighting or stressing about money. There are so many things that they're now, saying are considered trauma because it messes with our brain from the beginning. So the trauma response, and again, there's so much more to it. I know so many beautiful souls that this is their work, is working with the brain, somatic healing, this kind of thing. And I know you could describe it a lot better, but sort of for the sake of this, understanding that the trauma response comes from that brain that is like unsafe. We must protect ourselves. So it's going to respond from fear, from lack, from control. It's going to try to be proving for validation. It's going to be people pleasing because it wants to stay safe. And so if we keep people happy, then we're going to stay safe. It's coming from more of this avoidance or overwhelm or self-preservation in some way. And sometimes they can look very different, like the highest self and the trauma response, but sometimes they can be very sneaky. And as I said in the intro, I call that the ego in the highest self suit. And we could call for this trauma in the highest self suit. You might be working nonstop in your business, and we need to ask ourselves, is this highest self in flow? And is this like creative explosion and good, thumbs up? Or is this a trauma response of trying to prove your worth or feeling like you have to hustle to make money? So before we move forward in this, the highest self comes from truth, from highest self truth, meaning the highest outcome of all. In your highest good, that's where your highest self is coming from. And the trauma response self is just coming from reaction. So it could be a good thing like exercise, or it could not be a good thing like a coping strategy or a substance or whatever, but it's going to come from avoiding pain. It's going to come from reaction and a deeper part of you that doesn't feel safe. So going a little bit deeper and looking at even good, quote unquote, habits. I even don't like saying good and bad, but for the sake of this, I have to choose language. So we're going to look at quote unquote good habits that can be trauma coded, or they could be not fully coming from your highest self. They could be from a survival strategy. So I know that I have lived through an eating disorder, and a lot of you have reached out sharing similar stories. It truly took over more than a decade of my life, to the point where I was not highly functioning. I was constantly having panic attacks. I was unhealthy. I caused myself a seizure. There was a lot that went on in that time. Also a lot of drugs just to not eat. And it was just a really dark time. It started with eating clean. It started with a mom, and not that she started it, but I grew up healthy. She was aware of vegetables and this and that. And she would make little comments about ingredients in food, or about something being high fat, or, the women in my family would make comments about weight. And it's not their fault. I went through a journey with my eating disorder, and it's also part of my story. It's part of my Phoenix rising. I have no shame, and it wasn't from them. It wasn't their fault, my mom or the women in my life or whatever. But for the sake of this conversation, what I was going to say is it started from eating healthy. I grew up on a farm. I grew up eating very earth foods. We didn't eat out. We didn't have, we had to go into town to go to a restaurant. So it was a very, something that didn't happen a lot. I grew up on healthy food. And then as I grew up and we moved closer to the city and eventually into the city, I was always like the healthiest of my friends, in the way that they would say like, oh, Talia's ordering a salad, or I would be eating cucumber, and like my favorite food was an apple. And, it was just funny. So it started, I was healthy. And in my quest for something to feel good about myself, it slipped into being a form of control, being a form of numbing, being something that if I just attained this, then I could be happy. It was a direct trauma response from being bullied and being bullied about my body. So eating clean even can be something where you're in your higher self and you're eating clean and you're eating chia seeds and, quinoa bowls and whatever you see for yourself. That can be coming from this place of, I love myself so much. I want to fuel my body, which is, I'm so blessed and honored to say where I am now. I am very healthy. I eat very clean, but it comes from love. And you better believe that I still enjoy my chocolate. And if something random comes up and I'm eating whatever, there's no guilt anymore, but I eat clean because I'm back into my roots. I'm into my highest self in that way. So when I choose a Buddha bowl, when I choose to fast, when I choose to have apple cider vinegar before meals or whatever, it comes from self-love. And I'm definitely not perfect. We're only talking of one area of my life, but this is a really good example of how eating clean and exercising and having habits can come from the highest self. I love myself so much. I want to build myself up. I want to constantly fuel and nurture my body and my dreams. Or it can come from punishment. It can come from self-hatred. It can come from, I have to lose 10 pounds in the next 10 days because there's that thing and I have to look better than that other person or whatever else, right? And no judgment. We all deal with these things in some way or another, but that's a really good example. Also, one that's kind of sneaky, and some people may not like this. Another area where it can feel like the higher self, but it's actually a trauma response, can be in doing more like work or journaling or healing before taking action, or as a way to avoid action. Action is scary, okay? And we need to be doing both. The other thing I want to say, I believe in seasons, and sometimes there are dormant seasons where I go into like a month or maybe 2 where I'm shutting things down, meaning I'm not taking a lot of action because I'm going in. And our habits and our cycles aren't meant to last forever. So even if your action is going for that walk for yourself, or going back to the yoga studio, or having time to meditate each day, or something you've been wanting to do for yourself, when we delay action too long, we're really just avoiding it. We're avoiding moving ourselves forward. So you are supposed to have time to process and heal and go through your own things. But even as you do that, you can be, again, going for a walk. You could be still going to the gym even once or twice a week, or, hiring somebody to help you through the time, or whatever it is. When we completely avoid action, that's often a trauma response. So if you find yourself stuck more in like, but I got to figure this out, but I got to crack the code, but I got to heal all my stuff before I can start the business, write the book, travel the world, go out on a limb, right? That's going to be probably you avoiding action because it's scary. And so no shame in that. Some things take me a long time because I'm like, I should probably do more inner child work before I take this big scary leap. But we have to learn to balance both. Another thing I touched on earlier, manifestation and even positive affirmations and all this can be coming from the higher self. These are things I believe. These are activation codes, like go get it. I love me, right? I can feel the millionaire energy. That stuff can be from your higher self. Or it can be the bypassing I was talking about, where we're like, I'm a millionaire, like close your eyes and then like open your eyes. Ah, crap, I'm not a millionaire. Oh my God. It can be from this place of I'm so uncomfortable. I have to force something. I have to change something, right? So that's why things like affirmations, they're just almost like an amplifier. If you're in the zone, they amplify. But one affirmation, instead of shifting root beliefs, or instead of taking action, or instead of doing the work to actually believe these things, it's not going to help. And I want to say that it's not about what you're doing, it's the energy that you're doing things from. Right? Thinking of the eating disorder. I was also obsessively exercising. I would go to the gym early morning, like 6 a.m. before work, and then also after work. And I did it so much that I started to notice when the staff, like the same person from the morning, wouldn't be there, so that nobody would notice like how much I'm going to the gym. That is not healthy. That was coming from pure self-hatred. That was not from a good place. However, if someone's like, oh, I'm going to get in the best shape of my life, and in the morning they do an exercise class, and after work they do, some spinning or whatever, that could be good job. You go, girl. You change your life. It all is who you're being and where it's coming from. So let's talk about shifting back into the highest self habits, starting to notice the difference more. Like, how can we really not notice the difference? How can we really discern? That's what I want to talk about. So asking yourself as you're doing something, is this action rooted in truth or fear? And I want to kind of bring, if it resonates with you, I like to say, and you'll hear me say, the capital S self. And I think that's from IFS, but it just really resonates with me, like the true self, that source consciousness within you, the highest self. I like to say self with a capital S. So then I also like to say truth with a capital T, like my truth. So asking yourself that, if it resonates, or whatever word works for you, is this action rooted in that capital T truth, or is it in an unsteady fear, right? And that's a really good starting point, because right there you will start to receive some clarity. And then asking yourself, would I be doing this if I was in my highest self? If I was rooted in self-love? If love was my guiding force, would I be doing this? That's a really good question, because there have been times where, say I'm, working out really consistent, and then I get a cold or a flu and I go like, oh, but I don't want to miss Wednesday. It's leg day. And I'm like trying to do leg day while I'm like sniffing and my head hurts. If I stopped and said, is this coming from self-love? If I was deeply rooted in love, would I be doing this? And actually in that moment, if I was deeply rooted in love, I'd get my butt back to bed and I'd drink a ton of water and I'd give myself rest. Whereas if there's a day, if I'm like sluggish, I'm like, I don't want to. And it's like, would my highest self do leg day because you're going to feel better after? That could be like a yes, totally, right? So right away, ask yourself, is this rooted in truth, capital T, truth, or fear? And then would I be doing this if I was 100% in self-love? And another question you can ask, and these are all just to get to the same answer, so whatever one really resonates, through this action, am I leading myself from power or pain? And that's a really good one. Sometimes in relationships or in certain, times in our life or areas of our life, when we ask ourselves that, am I coming from my power, or am I leading from my power here, or my pain? So asking yourself those to start to get to the answer. And then I also want to share how our highest self habits and actions, they're gentle but bold. They're soul led. So when we're soul led, sometimes like hosting my retreat, it's going to in some ways scare you. And that scared/excited feeling is really real. And that can be like, oh my God, I can't do that. What am I doing? Oh my gosh. And you just want to like be like, never mind, close all the doors, walk away back into the old self, right? So sometimes the highest self asks you to do these things and we're like, oh my God, what the heck? It's not always gentle and graceful, and I'm going to do yoga. It can tell you, quit your job, travel the world, or leave this relationship, or go ask that person out, or do a TED Talk, and it can be scary. So when we get nervous, this is a beautiful thing to think. Nervousness and scared, excitement and fear, these are both the same emotion. Excitement and fear. One has a projected positive outcome. Excited is like, oh my God. Whereas fear or nervous has a projected negative outcome. So when your soul leads you to do something big, you're going to be excited/scared, nervous/so like thrilled at the same time, where you kind of want to back out, but you kind of can't wait. And that's normal. So it's nice to discern, is this excited? Is this a positive feeling of like, oh my gosh? And as if we start to shut down and doubt ourselves, we could be like, no, this is actually just the height of like scary highest self excitement because of how big it feels, or because of, the life I know it's leading me to. So soul-led is going to feel more exciting. And even when there's flecks of scary, you can come back to, is this in my highest good? Is this my capital T truth, right? And really start to see that it is my highest self. It's just crazy. So highest self habits are often as well they're more quiet and long lasting. So it's that whisper telling you that you're made for more. It's that whisper telling you to look after your body. And it will get stronger and stronger, and the highest self or the trauma response is going to be like a loud, like, no, you can't do that. Or like, what are you doing? It's really impulsive. It's like a reaction. It's like a blurt out, right? So the trauma response or the ego will be like, you can't do that, and kind of frantic. Whereas the highest self is often just much more solid, but like slow and steady. It's those things that when you do them, you're like, oh, why did I wait so long? Like my intuition is literally been saying this for sometimes decades, right? I know I should be blah, blah, blah. When it's in the highest self, it's because it's that slow, steady drip of I'm just going to keep dripping in the suggestion from your intuition. It's just going to keep dripping. And that one can be easy to override because the ego or the trauma response is impulsive, it's reactionary, right? So feeling into those highest self habits, those actions, and see that, like, what do I know deep down? What is my intuition? What have I had a nudge about for a long time? Those are pretty much always going to be the highest self. And the last thing I want to say is the highest self habits when you're trying to, create something like an exercise plan or, something when you're identifying something in your life about it, if it's the highest self or not, it's going to be the highest self is more about being than doing. So the ego or the trauma response kind of says like, you have to do this, or even like you have to make this much money. Whereas the higher self will be much more about being. So say two schools or two paths. One is the higher self, one is the trauma response or the ego. And we're both paths lead to a millionaire, right? A very physical goal. The ego can be more about what you have to do and how it has to go and the plan and the rigidity and this'll show them, and when I get there I'll be happy. Whereas the highest self will say, like, in your cells you feel that richness, that abundance, that receptive energy. We are moving into our millionaire self. What would my millionaire goddess self dripping in gold, how would she make this decision, or what decisions in her business or whatever? So you don't have to talk like that, but showing you that you can achieve very physical, tangible goals through the highest self, but it's going to be a different feeling the whole time. So your highest self may lead you to like a financial planner because that's not, your gift of genius or your zone of genius. So they might lead you to the right person, or they might lead you to the right person for business or for crypto or for investments or whatever. Whereas the ego might be like, it has to be this way, much more focused on like the plan, and we're just going to be strong and we're just going to do it. And then that's going to show everyone. So again, it's just really the energy in which you are doing things. I know you understand by now. I just get really passionate about this stuff. So a few more times that you can, just a couple more reflections. So a couple more reflections before we wrap up. I want you to think about this next time you go to say yes to something, but your body says no. Okay, I know you know what that feels like. Or the next time you're pushing harder when what you really want and need is rest. The next time you feel yourself performing or filling the gap with more stuff instead of pausing to reorient and kind of choose the path forward. The next time in your business you're posting or you're putting out an offer or you're doing something in your life from urgency, from like, oh, I got to do this thing right now, instead of from overflow, from this feels good, from this is my next aligned step. So noticing the energy behind your actions. And the last thing I want to say is that a trauma response will often involve, as I'm talking about, like pushing and striving and all that, but also avoiding. So sometimes you can ask yourself, like, what am I avoiding by doing this? And there are even times in my business where there's something that I have to do that for some reason, it's like I want to avoid, I want to shut down. And so I'll find other things to do. And sometimes I'm like, okay, what am I avoiding? Oh yeah, that email, that conversation, that thing, oh yeah, okay, I need to go do that. The ego, the trauma is going to avoid to stay safe. When it's uncomfortable to, take an action or look at your finances or plan something, or it's uncomfortable to believe in yourself or to go out on a limb, to go against what your parents or whoever else, what they want for you. Sometimes it is so scary that we shut down and we avoid because the unknown is terrifying. So this is deep, sacred work. And the more you become aware of the habits that you're carrying, the more you start to return home to that truth with a capital T. And as you experience these things, remember there is no shame. I see myself in all of this. This is the human journey. This is the awakening journey. You're not doing anything wrong. The absolute key is to identify it. So instead of trying to become your highest self, start to inquire. Remember that part of you. Start living from them, from her. realizing that it's not some perfect path to attain. Your highest self is just sitting there giving you guidance, leading the way to your highest good through compassion and through love. And in so many ways, I just want to share, your highest self is almost like a GPS, where like if you have a GPS in your car and you go the wrong way, it just says like, turn around here. Or if you find yourself in some random park, it's like, okay, from here, go left, go right. That's what your highest self does. So your highest self isn't judging you. Your spirit team is never laughing at you or going, oh my gosh, you're messing up. Like that's the human. Your higher self is loving you exactly where you are. If you wake up and you have eaten a bag of chips yesterday, or you drank a lot, or you're hungover, or you did something that is in the lower self or whatever else, your highest self wakes up that morning and goes, okay, what do we need now? Right now we need water. Right now we need a walk, self-compassion. Whether you go back to that person or you don't, whether you take the big leap or you don't, your highest self still absolutely loves you and sees you with love eyes, and also has guidance for you right now in the non-perfection. Because you're not your highest self. You're the human. You're the messy human like I am. But the highest self is always there no matter what you've done or haven't done. No matter how much you've lived in the likelihood or in the lived in the image of your higher self, whatever, as aligned you are or not, whatever the words are, you get it. It doesn't matter. They love you. And they're always offering guidance from right now with no judgment of yesterday. That's the ego. That's the human. They don't judge you. They're there all the time. So start to notice that energy coming forward where you go to say yes and your body says no. Or when you're like, sure, I'll take on that other thing. And inside you're like, all I want is to sleep. Like kind of like what I've been feeling. We start to notice it. We start to inquire. We breathe into, and then we have a choice. We have a choice to live from that part of us and realize that they're never gone. That truth is there. We're just a layered human. So give yourself grace and allow this to go into your day. And you can ask yourself with your hand on your heart, what does my highest self want me to do from right here? And it could be anything from drink water, go for a walk, clear your calendar, yes, do the thing, no, pause, go to the lake, whatever it's going to tell you, trust in that. Remember her. Remember this part of you. You're doing such good work. I truly hope that this served you today. And if you want support in this evolution, the retreat will definitely help you to activate this higher self, to get in touch with your capital T truth. It's kind of the theme of the whole thing. So I can't wait to see you there. And I will also see you in the next episode. Hey, thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I really hope that it served you. So before you go, I want to share something with you. If you're loving these conversations about self-growth and healing and moving forward, and you're really ready for more tools, more implementation, more integration, more structure, more what do I do? I invite you over to On the Path. This is my only private community, and honestly, it's the place to be if you want to integrate, if you want to deepen your journey and you find my work helpful. Here's the vibe: bite-sized practices, ongoing support, deep dive episodes, weekly practices, monthly challenges, literally just keeping you on your path, showing up for yourself day by day, week by week, month by month. So this is where you really put it into action, and I've got your back with these assignments, tools, practices, shifts, deep dives, meditations, journal prompts, and literally everything you could need to carve out your unique journey of self-growth, self-healing, and transformation. So I'm not going to go on and on. If you feel called, you feel called. And if you check below, because you made it all the way to the end of this, you'll find a link to join On the Path for the first month for only $11. So after that, it's just $27 a month, and you can go at any time. Okay, my love, I genuinely hope this episode lit you up, and I can't wait to welcome you over to On the Path, and I cannot wait to see you also in the next episode. Thanks so much, and have a great day.